Hey guys, this is Jim, KN4YCD, and you're watching FEP Labs Radio. Today I want to do a quick show and tell of a meter I got. I bought this off of eBay. This is a LabVolt 1247-00. It doesn't say that on the front, it is on the back. This is about a 20-year-old meter. I will be taking it apart and showing you the insides here in a second, but I got this off of eBay. It was about $60 or $80. I don't remember exactly. And this is an interesting meter for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a chunky boy. It is stout. That's a metal case, top and bottom and back. And besides being your standard digital voltmeter, which it is, and I've tested that and that works fine, and I'm not going to waste time showing you that it measures volts, ohms, and amps, because it does. It also has an audio function generator built into it, which is cool, and one of the reasons I bought it. There's a few things that are a little different about it, and I want to go over that real quick. So here's the audio functions. The meter down here, the dial down here, goes between 0 and 200, and then you have frequency multipliers down here on the bottom with these different buttons, times 1, 10, 100, and 1000, to change the magnitude of what audio frequency you're listening to, or using as a test signal rather. There's the output level there, and then you can create a sine, square, or sawtooth output wave with that, and we'll do that in a second. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this meter, and I've noticed this with older meters, they're not generally set up the same way typical newer technology meters are set up. If you look at any meter that you buy today, every one I've ever seen, unless it's a specialty meter, is going to have your volt ohm range here, and this meter also measures hertz. So this will be volt ohm, your common, and then a separate plug for milliamps, and then this meter will go up to 20 amps of current measurement. So if you're measuring milliamps, you move it over, but it's the same common. This lead will do volts and ohms. So that's typically how you see most meters wired, in some fashion very close to this. So this guy's a little different, and it's not a big deal, it's just different, that's all. So here's our common, and it is common for everything, but this connector here is only for voltage. That's all this guy does. Let me angle this a little bit so it's not glaring so bad. This guy does just voltage. These two connections are for resistance measurement or diode check. And then this red connection here is for our current check. So this is a little different because typically ohms are built into the voltage function as well, and it's not in this one. These two connections serve two functions, though, ohms and diode check. The meter will auto range or manual range, AC or DC. It has a high and a low range for resistance. If you want to adjust the range manually, otherwise auto range will go from 1 to whatever the upper limit of this is. I don't know what the upper limit of this is because I can't find a manual for it. It didn't come with one off the eBay seller I purchased it from, and I have been Googling and I cannot find one. The current range on it, and this is another reason I'd like the manual, the current range here shows 200 milliamps or 20 milliamps. So I'm a little hesitant to see how far that'll go past 200 milliamps of current. I didn't buy this as a frontline meter really. You know, this is a little bit of flair for the lab bench, and that's, you know, a lot of it. But it does have the audio frequency generator, which can be useful even for amateur radio purposes and other things. So that's it. It has a fuse inside, and then it has a circuit breaker here. The fuse is coming off the back of the transformer for the power supply. This runs off of 120 volt AC and then steps down inside, and I don't know what the input voltage on the board is because it doesn't list it. and I'm not smart enough to figure it out. I could put a meter on it, I just haven't. The other thing that's obviously a little different is it has these two connectors for using the audio frequency generator. So I'm going to plug this in and turn it on, and like I said, I've already used this and tested it and it works fine. And I do want to hook it up and show you the audio function generation capability, and then we'll take it apart and take a look at the innards of it. I got to name this thing something, and one of the guys in the Discord, in Toad's Discord, Lee, has a cat named Big Chungus, and I thought that was an appropriate name, so I may make a label for this that calls this thing Big Chungus, because it is the largest meter I have ever seen. I'm not saying there aren't large ones, but this is the largest one I've ever seen. So let me plug this thing up and let's play with the audio function generator, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got it hooked up to a speaker over here. This is just a generic Bluetooth speaker. It also has a line input on it. So the frequency range here is in hertz, and again, these are our multipliers. So let me just turn this guy up. And while the screen is showing numbers, we're not actually reading anything. The LCD does not have any function with the audio frequency generator, which is kind of sad. I really wish it did, but it doesn't. This is our dial to set the frequency, and I don't know how well you can hear this. Let me turn the volume up. There it is. So you can probably hear that now. That is a square wave, sine wave. This is at about 105 hertz. And if I hit the times 10 button, that's about 1050 hertz. Sine wave, square wave, and sawtooth. So that's pretty straightforward what that does. And you have an adjustable level on this, so you could use this to inject it into, you know, any circuit that was expecting an audio input signal, and you could set the level. You know, this is an amplified speaker, so obviously I've got line level output here. I don't need to jack this thing up anyway because this is amplifying it. But that's about it, really. It's a pretty neat meter. You know, it's a big guy, but I thought it was pretty interesting, and that's really why I bought it, because it was interesting. Okay, so we've got this thing open, and I apologize. I'm going to have to overdub my delicious narration of this process. Someone did not have the microphone turned on. So when you pop this thing open, you see there on the right the transformer to step it down from 120 volts to probably 12. I should have checked that. I did not. There are two fuses in this thing. It has one there below the transformer in that picture. You can't see it. And then there's a circuit breaker on the front. The controls I'm pointing at there, those are the audio controls. Those pots are to adjust the multiplier buttons for the audio functions. There are two boards in this guy. The board you see there in the back, and then the larger board in front. Power transistors, resistors, capacitors, transistors, obviously. A couple of ICs that I'm not entirely sure what they do. It's just out of my wheelhouse. I have no real idea. So here I'm turning the thing over, and we can see the sticker that's dated June of '99. So this thing is 22 years old, 22 and a half, something like that. All right, so here there are a couple, 3 ICs on this. The one I just pointed at. There should be something to control the LCD screen. The hookup for that is there. It has a lot of extra pins, so I don't know what all kind of functionality that has. You know, I assume there's a driver or something for that to translate the data into the display screen. It would be nice if they had put a backlight in there. I suppose it should be pretty easy to put in an LED or something to light that screen, because it is not easy to see if it's dark. There on that middle board, there's a little daughter board, and there it looks like a IC chip of some sort there. On the left side, as you're looking at it, of course, that's where the connections are for the different probes, the electrical based probes and the audio function generator. And then down there at the bottom right, we have that circuit breaker, which is what that big white blob is right there. That's hooked to the meter functions. That is a separate breaker for those functions, so I assume if you overcurrent, it will pop that breaker. I probably will try that at some point, hopefully not letting the smoke out. On the transformer side, just off camera there, you can't see it. There's a small glass fuse that is probably a 250 volt 10 amp fuse or 2 amp fuse. I don't know. I didn't get the. I'd have to get a magnifying glass to get close to read that thing. So anyway, that's about it. The controls and the build on this thing are really solid, and for a 22-year-old meter, this thing is really built like a tank, and I think it's pretty slick. Goes together like that. The metal cover panels. There's a top panel that goes over top, just like you're looking at it, and then obviously one on the bottom that goes under the bottom to hold this thing together as such. So that's about it for that. Guys, that's about all I have for today. I appreciate you watching. If you would, down there on the bottom, give me the big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already, and ring that bell so you get notified whenever I post any new content to YouTube. If you have any comments or can find a manual for this thing, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I sure like reading them. Thanks a lot, guys. 73s.